Okay, so we want to create a live holder here. This is one from MT Marchetti. In the USA, this is MD Tooling. So this is one of their solids. It's a live holder. It's an axial milling holder. And like usual, we want to first make sure that the solid model is oriented in the correct orientation. So this is the face that's going to sit flush up against the turret. I'm just going to go ahead and highlight that face and then come up here to the home and align Z. And what that will do is put the Z vector normal to that face, and we can see that the Z vector would be going up into the turret, which is what we want. The other thing is the x-axis. We want the tool, the holder, when we load it on the turret to be oriented in rotation around Z, facing the main spindle. So that way, if I want it on the sub, I just put in 180, or if I load it and it's going to be working on the main, I don't have to do any rotation. So we see the X. This is the vector that points toward the main, the X. So what I need to do is rotate this -90 around Z. So we're going to go ahead and grab everything, and we want to rotate this the -90 degrees about the Z-axis. So we're going to come and right-click and say copy. We're going to say rotate, move. We're going to say -90, and we could leave this checked, or we can uncheck it and pick the Z-axis. I'm just going to leave it checked, and now we see that the tool is oriented along the X-axis. So this is what we want so far. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and create my tool spindle axis at the face of this collet nut. So when I create a tool, it will appear here with the correct orientation of the tool coming out. So what I want to do is first translate my work plane. So I'll come here to translate, activate that work plane, and come, and you'll see as long as I have that highlight mode on, it will automatically snap to the center point and indicate that before I click. Now I want my tool to be oriented just like my holder. So my tool vector is the W, and it should be pointed inward to the holder. So what I want to do is rotate my UVW, only my UVW axis, about the Y or the V, and it's going to be a -90. So I'm going to come here to rotate UVW, and down at the left you'll see it prompts me for the vector. So for U I want 0, and then for V I'm going to put in -90 and enter, and then 0 for W, and that is going to place my W axis into the holder. So now my tool, when I create it, will appear at this position, center point, and will extend outward. So now what I could do is come here to File, Save As, and here I'm going to, Work Plane, and save as TSA, and we're just going to call that TSA1 for Tool Spindle Axis and 1. And then I can basically save this at this point in time for my GDML, but I'm going to go ahead and change a couple colors real quick and do some other manipulations to split the solid. So the first thing I'm looking at here is this coolant line. It looks like it's actually intersecting with the collet nut. It is. I need to fix that. So looking at this, what I'll probably wind up doing here is just taking this face. So I'll come here to the home and come to work plane from geometry and pick this face, and I'm going to create a circle. So we're going to grab these two edges, and I'm just going to right click and say copy and smash. And let's see, we got two arcs here, so let me just delete one and then on the geometry tab I'll say keep and hold my shift key, and that will explode that arc back to a circle. And now that I have this circle, what I can do is extrude it. So I'll go to modeling and say extrude, and we'll reverse the direction. And it depends on how far you want to go. I'm gonna go back, let's see, that's probably pretty good there. And I'm going to create an active solid, and I'm going to cut. And that's going to get rid of that for me. You know, I got this little nick in the collet nut, but that won't really affect anything. I'll just get rid of that, go back to XYZ here. So that looks alright. And now what I want to do is actually split or make some coloring changes for the holder, just so it looks a little bit nicer. If you didn't want to do any of this stuff, you can just go to, you know, we created our TSA, so you can go to File, Save As, and come down here to a holder file and save it out. But I'm going to continue to do a few things here on this file, and there's one thing about splitting off the collet nut to make it spinning when you're simulating that I'll do as well. So let's go ahead and just Control A, come to Properties, and I like to, you know, depending on how realistic you want these to look, I like to make it a shade of black. Around 80 is the color that I use, and then I'll go to an F4, and here what I'll do is come down here and turn off my bodies and only activate the face. And that way when I zoom in, you can see that it's only going to grab, you know, certain faces. Sometimes it does funny stuff like this. So let me reposition this and see if I can go the other way and grab some of these faces like that. So here I'm going to grab those, and it looks like I got everything there. And I'll come over here to Copy, right-click Copy, and Attribute, and pick Copper for a copper line. And then the logo, I like making all my MT as yellow. So I'll just pick those two faces and change the color. And honestly, I kind of like when, you know, you have that more of an open steel coloring on the, you know, the collet nut and associated components there. So I'll just highlight those and come here to light gray and change those attributes, and that looks pretty good. So now we've got our TSA. What I'm going to do as a last step is highlight the model and come to split body, and for the plane to split, I'm just going to pick you know, maybe the back of the collet nut. We'll do that. We'll say OK, and we have this, I have to turn off my filter. We have this separated, and the reason for this is you can't do this in the ESPRIT interface, but on our end we have a special software that allows us to move the actual solid model for the collet nut now, since it's split off, onto the tool spindle axis. So when it's engaged in the simulation, you'll see the collet nut spin. So that's why I'm doing that. So if you're making your own holders and you don't care whether or not the collet nut spins, then you don't need to do that. If you want to do it, you can't do it in the ESPRIT interface, but as long as you split your solid first before you save it as a GDML, you can then send us your GDML and we can make that manipulation for you. So if you wanted to have the collet nut spin, I just personally think it looks cool, and you know, depending on the collet nut or how close you get, you know, hey, there could be a little feature that could come in just a little bit there and rub. So you know, getting nitpicky there, but we're going to come here to File, Save As, and we'll pick holder GDML, and here I like to add, we're going to do an axial, and we are done.